I'm here with Jonathan Micallef at the Australian Elite Team Gym. Jono, pleasure to be here. Thank you for welcoming me into the gym. Let's get straight into it. How does it feel? How was the high of winning your first UFC debut?
It was incredible, man. You know, like it took a while for me to come back to earth. I was sort of in the stars for a little bit there. But we're back now. We're back to work and we're focusing on what's next.
Well, when you found out that you were fighting Kevin Doucette, did you think that, maybe you were getting fed to the wolves here by the UFC after a pretty successful Dana White Contender Series?
Look, I know how good I am. My team knows how good I am, but I think that they didn't. You know, they wanted to test me. They wanted to see if what I've been saying and, how we talk about myself was really true. And we got put to the test and we proved to them that, we are of that caliber.
Well, recap the fight for me, okay? Because he really kind of changed his striking once you were peppering that body. You could see he left a footprint on his chest area. I don't know if he underestimated your striking, but where did you think you won that fight?
I think just with volume, if anyone saw that fight, they would have seen that I threw close to like 30, 40 kicks, and most of them did land. It was through volume and just sheer will. Like at the end, I sort of Kevin. Some say that Kevin won that round. I think that I still put in more damage than he did, but it was just the volume and my movement that he just couldn't deal with it, and he couldn't make the changes to win the fight.
You said he did pretty well reading the kicks and where they were going to land towards the head or towards the body, and that's probably what stopped the decision in the end. But overall, very happy with the UFC debut?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I would have liked to have gotten that first round finish with a couple little tweaks there. It would have happened, but, that's where the experience is, and the next one is what we're going to look for.
Well, after a very successful Dana White Contender Series, what was harder to prepare for? Dana White's Contender Series or Kevin Doucette on a month's notice? Because Dana White, it's short notice, and also you don't know much about your opponent. You get thrown in there, and it's a high-pressure situation. What was harder for you?
Yeah, I would say that the UFC debut was a bit harder, especially because we had that bit of extra time to prepare for it. And the UFC debut is one of them things that, for me, I've been looking at for 6-7 years of my life now. Since I was a kid, I was looking forward to one day making it to UFC. And when it did come and everything came to fruition, it was like the pressure was built. But I guess they say pressure makes diamonds.
Now, talk to me about your up-and-coming through the regional scene here in Australia. What's the path from Hex to the UFC?
It would be probably the way that I went through Dana White's Contender Series. But before you do that, it's just fighting the toughest guys and taking those fights, Like throughout my career as a pro and as an amateur, I took all the hardest fights and I didn't shy away from it, And sometimes I took fights on 2 weeks' notice, but it was just about staying competitive, staying in competition. That is the way to do it.
And you've bounced back before. I mean, you've taken a loss. You don't have that mythical, on your record that UFC fighters want. What did you learn from, having a loss on your record?
Yeah, I think that with that loss, I gained so much. It was a few things. It was first that you can't slack off and cut corners. Not that I did cut corners, but once you take a loss, you start to look for the hard way. You start to look for the way to do things more difficult and really turning over every stone. And that is what I started to do. On top of that, I started to focus a bit more on my recovery because I do think that I overtrained a little bit for that fight, and in those mistakes, they're the gems that make you a better fighter and a better martial artist in total.
Sometimes taking a breather, having a rest.
Yeah, man.
Gets you right. Now, talking about being in Hex and on the regional scene, you're very well known here. You're very well known in Melbourne. A lot of the Australian fight fans know you. What's it like going from being a very good, well-known prospect to having to start all over again as a rookie in the UFC?
It's crazy. It is crazy, man. It's wild. But I think that's the beauty of what MMA is. It's like starting from scratch as an amateur, starting from scratch as a professional, and then now starting from scratch as in the UFC, which is the most prestigious place to be. It's incredible. Biggest
organization.
It is. It's motivating.
Now, talk me through your day today as a rookie in the UFC. You've had one fight. You knocked it off, passed with flying colours. What's the day-to-day life of a rookie in the UFC?
I wake up, jump in my Lambo, go to training.
Beautiful.
Honestly, man.
Arman Sarukian, the next Arman Sarukian.
Yeah, that's it. Man, it really is the same thing. What I did in the amateurs, what I did in the pros, it's the same thing now. I'm just blessed not to have to work. So wake up, train in the morning, recover, do your ice baths, do your saunas, go back in the afternoon and prepare for your next
So
fight.
you're preparing a lot more. You're not in the construction industry as much.
Yeah, look, 10 to 12 weeks out from a fight, I do start to stop working, and
Okay.
this is actually the first week where I took that off. But outside of that, it's only 2 days a week. So for me, I feel like it's another thing that sort of got me to the dance. You know, staying active, staying on the tools, doing something, and then going to training. It is such a grind, man. It's actually harder than training in itself. You train for 2 hours, you rest. You train for another 2 or 3 hours. Whereas when you're slogging it out 8 hours at work, it can get really tough, especially on the mental, which is good. And there's benefits to it, and there's also fatiguing factors for your training, which take away from it.
What was your life as an amateur and then going into the UFC, working while training? So you would go work 8 hours, come into the gym. Do you think that could have been a detriment? Or, I mean, obviously pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah, man.
You rose to the top. Is that the route for everyone here in Australia?
I think so. I think just like anything in life, you've got to do the hard yards before you get the benefits, you get the rewards. You know what I mean? I think that if anyone just goes out and gets it done easy and doesn't really have to work hard to get to the position they'll be in, they'll probably take it for granted, or B, they didn't really earn their spot and where they are. You know?
How were you as a builder or in the construction industry? You're rock solid?
Oh, that's a question.
We got a bad name over in Sydney. A lot of shaky buildings.
Yeah.
You're pretty solid.
Nah, we were good, mate. Yeah, top notch. BM bathroom renovations. We did a good job.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, how important is it having a good manager in the UFC? Because you can let your resume do the talking, but if someone's not getting in contact with the matchmakers, with Sean Shelby, you're not getting a good look in, and they have to go out on a limb for you. How important is it having a really good manager that can build those connections for you?
I'd say outside of the performances and having a good coach, that's the next most important thing. From taking the right fights and getting put in positions where the reward is as beneficial as the risk that you're taking. Outside of that, it's like not having to worry about things like how you're going to get money, sponsorships, all that sort of stuff. That's for them to worry about, and you leave the athlete to focus on what the athlete needs to do, which is train and fight. And outside of that, a lot of that is sort of like it's centered away from the athlete themselves, and the manager and the coaches and stuff tend to get that.
And if you want to fight and you see someone in the welterweight division, you let your manager know, and then he passes that information on to the matchmakers?
100%, man.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not one to really vouch and jump out at specific names, especially like you said, I'm just a rookie. But as I make more of a name for myself, that's when I'll definitely start to be a bit more vocal with what I want.
Yeah, now, I mean, going through the Dana White Contender Series now, your first UFC fight, you're going to push on to your second. Does any name jump out in the welterweight division? Is there, you eyeing anyone out that you want to solidify yourself?
There are a few guys. You know, I feel like now after fighting Kevin, I've jumped my name into a spot where I can fight and start to call for some of the guys who are just below the rankings. I think Mike Malott would be a nice, fun fight. I think that would be a good one. Outside of that, man, I'll just take whoever they give me. You know what I mean, man? Like whoever they offer, I'll take and I'll jump at that.
So you're putting your hand up. You want to get back in.
Yes, sir.
Now, we've heard that UFC is returning to Perth. There's going to be a fight night in Perth. You putting your hand up for that?
Man, 100%. If I can get on that, there's nothing like fighting for your home crowd, man. I would love that.
You've done it before. I mean, you've fought in Vegas as well.
Yes, sir.
Is there something about fighting in Australia that you enjoy? I mean, the crowd loved both you and Kevin there on the night.
Yeah.
But how much would it mean to you to fight in Perth again? Second fight in the UFC back in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, have there been any other Aussie MMA fighters that have done that? Their first two fights to fight in their home country. I mean, it's sort of like such a blessing to be able to do that. And if I was to do it twice in a row, man, I'd love that.
Have you received any? Well, what's the greatest advice you've received from UFC fighters? You know, you train with Jimmy. You train with, I mean, you've received some advice from Dominic Cruz as well. What do you think the best advice is you've received from other UFC fighters?
It's a good question, man. I don't. There's nothing that really jumps out at me now besides what you said, Dominic Cruz. I think what he said to me has really stuck with me, and that, you know, like he was like, "Congratulations on your fight," and I said, "Thanks, mate. You know, on to the next." And he said, "Yep, and the next, and the next, and the next. It doesn't end, mate." And it's like, oh yeah, this is what makes it exciting, you know, like. now when you're in the UFC, there is no ceiling. Once you do get the belt, there's challenges. There's the other top dogs who are coming, and I think that's what it's all about, you know.
And how important is it being in a really good gym surrounded by talent like Jimmy Crute, talent like Jake Matthews? You know, I'm sure they've given you advice on your debut as well.
Yes, sir.
How important is it being surrounded by some of the best Aussie fighters?
I think that other than having a good coach, that is the next most important thing. If you haven't got good training partners to humble you, to let you know that you're not as good as you think you are, and to give you good rounds, then you're not getting what you need. And being under Jimmy Crute after a couple rounds that's that there's a lot you can learn from that, man. There really is.
He packs a good punch. We saw his last fight. I want to say it again, but now talk me through when you won the fight. You win your first UFC debut. Then you get to go and talk to Daniel Cormier. You've probably envisioned this moment.
Yes, sir.
Do you go up? Do you know what you want to say? Are you going up thinking you want to call someone out? What are you thinking when you're talking to Daniel Cormier?
Man, I had this whole plan that I had laid out in my head. You know, post-fight, I'm going to do this, I'm going to say that. But when I did get to the moment, dude, I was just like, fuck. It's all gone. It's
the
out
crowd's
window.
there, the spotlight's on you, you're on television, ESPN Plus, Kairouz Bros, everywhere. Yeah,
completely flustered, man. It was wild. But to be there and after envisioning it for so many times, man, it was nice. But hopefully next time I get out what I hope to say.
What did you hope to say?
I hope to call out for a 50G bonus. I hope there was a nice little statement I was going to make about, you know, the kid is here, and you know I've taken out one of the guys who've been around for a while, but I didn't get it out. But
you didn't want to drop the I'm the captain now, the captain of the UFC?
Yeah, that was there.
Yeah, that was in there.
Bro.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you spoke pretty well with him. You know, you broke down the fight and kind of said where, you know, why you think you won the fight and what separated you from Kevin. But I mean, in the post match, you went and you broke down the fight. You also had the birth of your son as well that you were coming off the back of as well, being a father. I mean, did that add more motivation for you going into that fight?
Yeah, man, 100%. There's nothing like coming home and seeing your son and being like, man, this is what it's all about, you know.
You gave him a little message on screen as well. I think after it cut off, you blew some kisses to the family, I think.
Yeah, I did always. Got to send them love, man. You know, they are a big part of what gets me to the fight in good shape. My wife and my son, they're both massive motivating factors, but they're also massive support. So to give back and send a little bit of love back is what it's all about.
Well, I want to get your thoughts on the welterweight division right now, because it's a mess. It's a lot of people dropping out of fights, especially in the top 5. We got JDM versus Bilal happening now. Carlos Prates versus Ian Gary. What's your thought on the current state of the welterweight division?
I think that, like you see, it is a little bit of a mess, but I think that's because there's so many good guys coming up. You know, you have, as you said, you got Machado Gary, you got Prates, you got Jack coming in for the belt. It is messy, but I'm hoping to clean it up a little bit after a few fights, man, and get up in the mix.
I love the confidence. Now, as a UFC fighter, I want your professional opinion. Who wins these welterweight fights? JDM versus Bilal Muhammad.
That's a tough fight, you know. Like, Bilal likes to pressure people, likes to push them up against the cage, make them work, let his hands go, and then start to get the takedowns after that. I don't think that JDM's going to fall into that pressure. I think that he's too slick on the feet, and he's got good hands to keep him off of him. But if I was to put it down, I'd say JDM in the 3rd round.
Really? TKO?
Yeah, I think
Let
so.
his hands
I think
go.
he'll be able to do it, yeah.
Bilal calls himself the Canelo of the division. Well, I guess we'll see if it gets tested. But, okay, what about this fight, which is just announced, Kansas City main event, Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates?
That's a tough one, man. I don't know. That can go so many ways. Does Ian try and grapple, or does Ian try and stay standing?
I think it's going to be similar to MVP, and he tries to grapple him and mix it in. And full respect to Ian. Taking fights on short notice, fights that no one really wants to have. You know, he's game.
Yeah, that's true. But look, that being said, MVP, I think is, I would say that he's of a higher caliber than Prates is. He's very good. Prates is a destroyer. He looks solid, but I don't think he's of the caliber of MVP. I think that he's overlooked a little bit.
Okay, these are the rumoured fights that could potentially happen. Got Joaquin Buckley versus MVP.
Okay.
What do you think?
Ooh. That's
two of the best strikers of the division.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Can Joaquin get to MVP? Can he get to his chin? I don't know. I think the MVP might be able to take that one
And
away.
last one, we've got these two going at it on Twitter right now. Colby Covington or Sean Brady?
Yeah, I think Sean Brady smokes him.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I really.
He had a great showing against Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
It was a great mix of like just following the game plan. It was almost Bilal's game plan, but just better because he finished him.
Yeah, well, if you look at Sean, I think that people underestimate how strong he is and how he made Leon look. Usman couldn't do that to Leon, so I mean, you got to give him the credit where it's due, and he deserves it.
As a fighter, Chael Sonnen throws out this term. He's every fighter's favorite fighter.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite fighter? And sometimes he's referring to John Jones, or he was referring to GSP at one point in time. Who, as a UFC fighter, who is your favorite fighter to watch?
I've got to give it to Robert Whittaker. Although he hasn't been so successful lately, man, he just has everything that I want to be as a fighter. He's well-rounded, good boxing, good grappling, and outside of the cage, he's just like a good man. He's a family man.
You ever had much to do with him?
I haven't, unfortunately, but Rob, if you ever want to get some work in, mate, I'd love to work with you.
Yeah, he's down in Sydney. One of the greats of the sport. Still got a lot left. I think he's tossing up whether he wants to go up in weight and test himself at light heavyweight, or be pretty interesting. But he's done some great things at middleweight, and obviously one of the best to do it. We love Rob.
Yeah,
Aussies love Rob. Now, in talking about your UFC, your next fight, how has the preparation been in the gym now that you've had one in? Have you made any changes to your game going into your second fight into the UFC? And have we heard anything? What's next?
No, I haven't heard anything yet, unfortunately. Look, man, I'm aiming for June, July, and let's just hope that comes to fruition. Outside of that, man, when we're out of camp, we really try and work on skills. We just upskill, learn new things, fuck around a little bit, if you know what I mean. Try something new, because I think that I've only been doing this sport for 6 to 7 years, and to really be at the point that I'm at is pretty unheard of, There's a few rare cases that I've done this. So now that I'm here, 6, 7 years, I still have so much development and new things that I can unlock, and now is the time for that, And then once we get a name, we get a fight, we focus, we sort of sharpen the blades, but now we're just making new blades. You know what I'm saying,
Okay, so to testing out new things.
That's it.
Now, I ask every fighter this when I interview them, but you know the regional scene just as well as anybody. Is there anyone in Australia you think is the next big thing in the UFC? Could be someone in the gym, could be someone you're watching in Hex or Eternal. Who do you think is one of the next big things, the undiscovered next big thing in the UFC?
Well, that's a good question, man. I think that there's a lot of guys that I train with that are on their way up. I think it's a great question. You've got me now.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you see anyone like, I know in Sydney we love George Mangos.
Yeah,
he's
he's
Kings
very
Road
good.
boy.
Yep.
He's doing really well. Hex featherweight champion. I think you'll catch him on a contender series pretty soon. But yeah, who do you think is that up and coming fighter that's could be early on in the UFC, probably can go on the next contender?
Look, I feel like in the heavyweight division, there's not really too much going on in the UFC. Ricky Bucham, who's is a heavyweight fighting out of Hex. He's also fought in Eternal, won a tournament there. He's doing a lot, man. He's a heavyweight with cardio, which you don't see quite often. And there's a few things he's doing at the moment, a few things he's polishing up, and I think that he can make a splash in there, man.
You're right, no disrespect to heavyweights, but they are just very overweight, light heavyweights at most of the time. That can't move and don't have the cardio.
100%, bro.
So, when you can get a good heavyweight that moves, you look at Tom Aspinall, there's a reason why he's the top of the division.
100%. Man.
Yeah. Now, let's give a wrap-up. I want to shout out to your Australian fans, people that have been following you. What's your Instagram handle and what's coming next for yourself?
Well, firstly, everyone that already knows me, thank you guys. Love the support. Appreciate it so much. My Instagram handle is Jono_Micca. That's it. But guys, got hopefully a huge announcement coming up for June, July. So keep an eye on this space. We'll announce it as soon as we find out what's going on.
Let's go. Maybe an Aussie on International Fight Week. I don't know. June, July sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Jono, really thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you so much, brother.
Wish you all the best. Okay? Get behind the Aussies.